Deltarune. Deltarune is the sequel to Undertale and is the brainchild of Toby Fox, We don't have any time for that because I just realized Deltarune releases tomorrow and I didn't even have time to make good visuals, let alone go through all of the sappy stuff. So hopefully you're here for the lore, not the video quality, because I made this whole thing in a single day. Deltarune was originally teased with these tweets that were written in the same style as all of Gastra's text for Entry 17. They originally teased Deltarune. Now, if you don't know who Gastra is, you should probably go watch part 1 of this series about Undertale that I've made. But once we load up the game, we're dropped into this Goner Maker segment, in which we get to make our own character. Now, this is the first introduction section of the game, and we basically are talking directly to Gastra. Although not confirmed, it's basically the most widely accepted theory at this point and is practically canon. But eventually, as all of you know, our creation is discarded and instead, we possess the character of Chris. To catch us all up on Chris's backstory, basically, Chris was adopted by the Dreamers, Toriel, Asgore, and their son, Asriel. This whole game is some sort of alternate dimension mirror of Undertale, but eventually Asriel goes off to college, Toriel and Asgore get divorced. But you see, back when they were kids, Chris and Asriel were best friends with the Holidays, Des and Noelle. However, in an unknown accident, Des actually went missing. The most common theory is that it was something to do with this bunker. Perhaps they were playing in it and got lost. And it's basically confirmed at this point that Noelle's mother is actually the mayor of the entire town. So since Asgore was the police chief, he ended up getting fired when Des went missing. This leads to some of the conflict in the story, and is probably why Toriel divorced him in the first place, because of all of this conflict and Des being lost in the bunker. Next up, of course, is the main story that all of us are familiar with. Chris and the class bully Susie end up going into a closet Will Byers style and find themselves in an alternate dimension. This is the Dark World. Now, when they're in the Dark World, they meet this guy, Ralsei. Now, Ralsei tells these two about the prophecy. The prophecy states that Ralsei, Susie, and Chris are actually the heroes of legend, and all of them are gonna go and seal a bunch of these dark fountains with Chris's determination. See, if there are too many dark fountains, it starts to shift the balance between light and dark, and that would be very bad and start this thing called the Roaring. Unfortunately, there's this Knight character that's going around and for some unknown reason is opening up a whole bunch of these dark worlds, which is bad for the aforementioned reasons. With all the basic stuff out of the way, we can finally get to, of course, who else except W.D. Gastra. Gastra is the character who actually originally announced Deltarune, and of course, as I mentioned before, talked to us in the Goner Maker segment. See, Gastra is very important to this story. Now, way back, 1 year ago, I made a video about Gastra, in which I said that it's most likely that whatever experiments he was working on tied into the world of Deltarune and at least Dark Worlds in some way or another. Most people agree with this theory, but of course, there's a chance it's not true. However, I'd say that it is most likely that Gastra is the one pulling the strings behind the scenes. He also drove Jevil crazy, and drove Spampton crazy, and drove me crazy, if you couldn't tell. He's also the one who was responsible for putting our soul into Chris, allowing us to play this entire game in the first place. And I think that Gastra is actually trying to perfect the world of Deltarune and make the prophecy that, in theory, he told come true. Basically, I think Gastra is just a perfectionist who's trying to fix the world of Deltarune to be the one exactly foretold by the prophecy. And genuinely, I think that this could be a stand-in for someone else. I think Gastra is a stand-in for Toby Fox. You see, the whole way Deltarune was created was by a fever dream Toby had, ever since he's been trying to create the game with the ending that he dreamed up, trying to fulfill his own prophecy. So there's obviously some parallels here. There's also a theory that perhaps the Goners we see in Undertale are rejected heroes of legend that Gastra attempted to use to create the same story of Deltarune we're seeing. It's definitely a very interesting and really good theory that I think is the best option we have, but doesn't have really enough evidence at this point to actually say that it's confirmed or is the most likely option, because we just don't know a lot yet. But anyways, Deltarune's releasing in like 10 minutes, so until next time, remember, Toby Fox is Gastra, Ralsei is Flowey, and this has been Tater Animations trying to do a YouTube video. We did it, guys. Oh, we did it. So, funny story for how this video got made and why it's coming out now is, I thought I had until tomorrow to post this, because Deltarune releases on June 5th, right? Well, no, apparently it releases on June 4th for me and my entire time zone, which means I needed to get this out before the game actually released, so it didn't seem like I was just late or trying to just make predictions that weren't actual predictions, and I was just parroting what happened in the game. That's not what's happening, because you're most likely watching this after Deltarune Chapter 3 and 4 have been released. No, I made this entire video in one day, and it wasn't even like a Saturday or a Wednesday, which normally I can probably, even with a lot of pain, I could probably pull off, but no, it had to be a Tuesday, which is super annoying because I was not ready to do it, but I did it, so I'm not expecting this video to do very well. I just felt like I was obligated to do it. I still have tons of other theories, like my shadow crystals theory and all that. Also, I want to put in my 2 cents on the whole Ralsei's a goner theory, because I think that has some merit. So, until next time, I already did my outro, so just remember to never